Welcome back to Three Tails. My name is Opie, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how I made this tableside valet. I used some bent wood lamination, so it's pretty exciting. Let's get into the shop and I'll show you how I did it.
Okay, I grabbed these pieces down and I already take them through the joiner just really quickly so I could take the finish off of some of these. I've got some really nice dark oak here, some nice red oak, and then some Brazilian tiger wood right here. I'm going to cut these down into strips to make a block. Once they're glued up, we'll take them onto the bandsaw, we'll rip them all down to small laminate sheets so that we can glue them all up and bend them into the shape that we want. So we've ripped down our boards on our table saw to cut to 3/4 of an inch. Butcher paper underneath here, and then I've got all my things that I'm going to need. My glue, my applicator, boards, clamps, and clamps. So pretty simple, just make sure that I put it up right. I do not have an applicator to this, but I got that, so figure I'll be alright. Alright, we got it glued up. Clamp channel. That's it, we're gonna let it dry overnight, cure up, see how it looks in the morning, keep the build going. Glue should all be nice and dried now, so we're gonna see what the reveal is. See how these pieces came out. So, run this through the joiner a couple times. Nice and clean, see what we got. I take a couple passes over the jointer on this one, and I'm only taking off about a 1/64 of an inch on each pass, so not very much waste on this material. I do it on 2 faces to make sure I have nice square 90 degrees, and then I take it to my bandsaw. This is going to have a little rocking motion in the beginning, and then I try to cut off about 1/8 of an inch on each one of these strips, and then I sand it down. If you have a drum sander, that would make this a lot easier, but that is a very large instrument, and honestly, I just don't have room in my shop right now. Once that's done and it's nice and flexible, I can move on to making the mold that's going to be making this S-bend. To do this, I actually just laminated a couple pieces of 2x4 together so that I had about 6 inches in width, and then I took it through my bandsaw very cautiously to make sure that I got this S-bend that I wanted. I made a line and I kind of just followed it closely, making sure that it was pretty smooth. Once it's done, I took some regular packing tape and I lined the inside of both these grooves. Doing that makes it so any squeeze out on the glue won't stick to the wood, and then I just have a big piece of 2x4 brick instead of actually having my nice laminated board. For the actual lamination on this, I'm using an extremely liberal amount of glue, and I'm making sure that there's squeeze out on the sides. If there's any excess, it won't hurt, it'll just get squeezed out. And if there's any air gaps, the wood glue will kind of fill it in. I took this lamination once it was done and I put it inside the mold, trying to make sure it's as squared up and that the pieces don't move. A trick that I should have used on this is you can actually put some sawdust, just some really fine sawdust in the middle of it, or salt, and that will actually stop your pieces from moving around while you're clamping it. Every time that I put a clamp on, I would just kind of make sure it was still back in line, and then I would put a clamp, another clamp, some more pressure, more clamps, and I just went back and forth and did this over and over and over until I had the 2 pieces of wood sandwiched fully and completely compressed, and I tried to just go slow and let the wood kind of tell me what it could and couldn't take at that time. Feel free to move your clamps around and do whatever you got to do until it's all the way compressed, and just use as many clamps as you have. You cannot use too many. Hey guys, we let the glue cure overnight. Now it's time to remove all the clamps and see what happened. Alright, so the resilience on here held pretty well. We'll remove all the pieces of glue on the sides. I run it through the joiner real quick just to kind of
clean up the edges. We'll see what we got.
Again, on the jointer here, I'm taking off just fractions of an inch. I'm just trying to get rid of any of the extra squeeze out glue and make sure that all of the laminated pieces of wood are smooth and lined up. Once it's done, I can kind of look to see if there's any air gaps in between any of the lamination. And honestly, this thing came out really good. No air gaps, no defects in the lamination. Super happy about it. You can use a spindle sander for this part. I just clamped up a belt sander to the side of my table and it worked really well. You can also use a router for the round over, but I was a little nervous and apprehensive of it, so I just did this by hand and I think it came out really good. On the bandsaw, I'm cutting out the slot that's going to be used for holding the watch in this Valet. For all of the crazy rounded angles, I don't have a smaller blade on my bandsaw right now, so I'm just taking a lot of smaller passes to make sure that I get as rounded up an edge as I can, and then I can go ahead and just kind of sand up those edges to make sure that they're nice smooth curves. For sanding, I did have to do it all by hand. I'm not going to take you through it all, but I did sand up to 320, and I was alternating in between with some rasps and some different files to get those interior curves until I got it all the way up, and it was nice and smooth and finished. I'm using a 1/4 inch cove bit here, and I'm making a small channel inside of the laminated wood. I did it in 2 passes to make sure that I limited the amount of burn and blowout chances that I had, and I cut it off at a 45 degree. This is what I used to actually hold the phone up.
First things first, I'm trying to route out some form of catch tray into this, and I've got it on my router table, and that's kind of my jig right now. It's time to build a jig.
So I made this jig out of 3/4 inch MDF, and I just used a bunch of half laps. But this jig made it so that I could move around my laminated board in the center, and no matter where I moved it, it was going to be exactly where it needed to be, and it would have nice clean edges by the end of me routing out this little catch tray. I used a center punch so that the drill didn't wander. What I'm doing here is just trying to make a channel or a hole with the drill bit on the cove edge, and that's going to make it so that I can fit a charging cable through. And when it was roughly the right size, I cut it off at the miter station at a 45 degree angle. I used some files to finish out the inside of this little cove piece, and then I made sure that my cable could fit through. When that was done, I moved over back to the belt sander, and what I'm trying to do is create a little bit of some curvature so that this fits nice and snug along the S-bend of it. And honestly, this belt sander wasn't really working, and I ended up just moving over to a rounded rasp. And it was a little bit harder, but it worked a lot better. And once I thought that I had that curve right, I tried to fit it against the S-bend, and it did. And I knew that the glue up would actually hold, and so we could move on to that. I used a painter's tape here to mask off the part of the S-bend that I did not want having adhesive on it, and then I sprayed it with my back to the camera, as you should, and used some wood glue and some CA, a little combination for quick hold and then also for long, durable holding. I let it sit for about 60 seconds, took off the painter's tape, and then it was actually good to go. It was already nice and sealed up. Using my table saw, I'm creating a 15 degree rabbet or channel. This is going to be used to accept the S-bend, and so I made sure to sneak up on the cut to make sure it was nice and tight. When that was done, I took it over to the routing table. Using a 1/4 inch round over bit, I'm making sure to come back on each one of the corners to prevent blowout, and then I went and hit all of the hard edges to make sure that they were softened to the touch. When that's done, I took it to the sanding. I sanded it up to 320 to grit. And when it was there, I added a small amount of glue on the end of the S-bend and slid it into the channel. When that was all said and done, this project is finished. I just needed to add on a little bit of Danish oil.
That's it.
I'm just using some original Danish oil for this. You could use tongue oil, butcher block oil, you could use linseed, a whole number of things, but this was just the greatest and most rewarding part of the project. Seeing all the different colors of the hardwoods that are all laminated together pop so well, it just made everything seem really worth it.
Alright guys, well that's it. Thank you very much for joining me along on this. I'm very happy on how the final product turned out. I've got a couple other projects up on my channel, so feel free to like, subscribe, and check those out. I'll be uploading pretty frequently, so I hope to see you all again soon, okay? Alright, bye.